I thought she would have children, be a great mother, and have a great marriage. I never would have dreamed that her marriage with Tom would have ended.
It just didn't last very long. As far as after the honeymoon was over, that was really kind of the end of it for their relationship.
At her lowest ebb, Karen realized she needed help. She turned to Stephen Levenkron, a specialist in eating disorders.
Karen went to New York ultimately to seek the advice of Stephen Levenkron, who had been recommended to her as an expert in eating disorders, which he undoubtedly is. There are many experts in eating disorders, and it's like finding a hairdresser or a shirt maker. You have to find the one that works for you. He put himself at her disposal. He made what therapists call a contract with her. He would do this, she would do that. He's very honest. He said, I couldn't stop her taking laxatives, but she would at least tell me if she'd used them.
And finally, he got her up to, and this is, by now we're talking, it's 1982. And she's been on this yo-yo for years now. And finally, she's up to something like 101 pounds, which sounds ridiculous, but it was a huge triumph. I mean, it was a woman who'd gone down to 78 pounds.
I think if you think of Karen Carpenter's professional and personal life in terms of a long, dark room with a window at one end of it, I think between them, Phil Ramone and Stephen Levenkron opened the shutters of that window for a little while. She couldn't stand the light. It was just too painful. She pushed it away and went back to California and went back on the treadmill. It killed her.
She was in her parents' a walk-in closet in her parents' home, preparing to get dressed. She was completely nude, as it turned out, and suddenly had this seizure. And she fell, and they discovered her. It was early morning, and the firemen and paramedics worked on her for about a half an hour. She still had a heartbeat. Her heart was beating about once every 10 seconds. They worked on her, and then on the advice of physicians that they were in touch with, with the hospital, they said, okay, bring her in. They brought her in. She was still alive. They worked on her at the hospital for another 30 or 40 minutes or so, and then she was gone.
Karen Carpenter's death was a total shock at the time. No one ever thought that anorexia could actually kill you like that, and so suddenly. You'd think you'd be in a hospital, you'd be treated for weeks, with tubes everywhere. Then you might die, but you don't just pass out in your bedroom.
She had discovered something called Ipecac, which is something that I think to this day you can walk into a drugstore and just buy over the counter. And what it is sort of the poor man's antidote for poison. You take a belt of it after you've swallowed some, I don't know, washing liquid or something, and it makes you vomit. Well, now she wasn't taking the laxatives, but she was taking this Ipecac. But Ipecac, if taken in quantity, turns around and becomes a poison. It's used to expel poison, but it is actually poison. Basically, she died not just because she was taking that, but another phenomenon happens. When you recover your strength, or you're feeling better and you're feeling whoopee-doo, you can put a strain on your heart. Your heart's not ready to take the extra weight, the extra activity, so her heart muscle was also weakened in that way. So all of these things converged suddenly, and she just dropped dead.
Karen died at home in her parents' house on February the 4th, 1983, aged just 32.
It was kind of like everyone that knew her. I mean, it wasn't expected. We had thought that she was cured.
Nobody knew until she was dead that she was really that sick and that disturbed, because she really faked it. I mean, she kept it all within herself. No one ever saw her throwing up. She didn't let people come along when she was buying her laxatives. She really kept it a secret.
There had to be some amount of turmoil for what she presented to the world and what was going on inside her. Wicked when you think about it.
The claustrophobia
they're not feeling in control. And I think with Karen, that's probably what happened in her situation, was that at times in her life she didn't feel in control of her own life. She felt it was being controlled for her in a lot of ways. And that's the hardest thing to be able to deal with.
I've often thought about whether there was something that any of us could have said or done. I've thought about it for 25 years, whether there's something different that could have been said or done by anyone close to her, and I don't know the answer.
Somebody so early in life goes, and nobody kind of understood this terrible disease. You know, this anorexia is something that people just were starting to discuss.
Suddenly, a lot of women realize that you can die very suddenly from starving yourself and taking laxatives and over-exercising and obsessing about your weight to that extent. And everybody knew someone that was that thin like Karen. And we all started looking at our friends differently, taking an interest in them, and trying to help them out.
We've only just begun to live. White lace and promises, a kiss for luck, and we're on our way. Before the rising sun.
When you've got the greatest voice that God ever gave anyone, even in her poor health, she still could out-sing anybody. So that's the part that's so tragic, is that you know if she were alive today, she'd still be making this great music.
When you look at the lyrics of the songs which became the greatest hits for the Carpenters, which are articulated by the voice of Karen Carpenter, you see something which is not unusual in performing artists. You hear Karen say in her songs what she couldn't say in her life.
I think that Karen had the extreme gift to connect one-to-one with her listener. There was something about her voice that went straight from the speakers right to the heart.
When the evening comes,
I remember watching her playing, and sitting there at the drums and singing her heart out, and just being a part of that group. She had such joy. That was really what her life was about.
I think they had classic songs, and I think they crossed barriers. I think it's so melodic. I think her voice is just so beautiful. I think there was a uniqueness to what they wrote, and that kind of music just doesn't go away. It'll never go away.
yes, we've just begun.
Make the most of your whole garden.